Don't want to sit inside even though a storm is coming? Okay. This happened to me a few years ago and I just remembered it recently. I was working at a restaurant waiting tables in a very affluent area on the Jersey Shore. We had our fair share of entitled people who were under the impression that if you throw enough money around you can do whatever you want and treat people however you want. And when your income depends on their tips, you kind of just have to deal with it. The restaurant had an outdoor dining and bar area that overlooked the ocean with an amazing view. During the summer this was pretty much where everyone wanted to sit rather than our indoor dining area. And for anyone who works someplace with outdoor dining, you know the one monkey wrench that can ruin a very profitable dinner shift, the weather. No matter how accurate the forecast says it's going to be, you can never know for sure. For the most part we never had an issue, because if it started to abruptly rain there would usually be more than enough room inside for all the people who were sitting outside to move it. It's usually a clusterfuck to keep track of which table moved where, but we always handled it without any issue. Until that one day. We had a large party booked one day in our indoor area that took up more than half our tables. A 50th birthday I believe. So our indoor capacity was limited. And even on top of the party, there were customers who were weary about the weather so they decided to sit inside also. And then more and more people started sitting outside. My manager did a quick assessment and realized that if it started raining, we would barely have enough room inside to accommodate everyone who was sitting outside. He told us we had to stop seating our outdoor area and to start recommending to our outdoor tables to move inside because of the impending weather to be on the safe side. Everyone's weather app was saying there was a downpour coming up the coast. Everyone was okay with it, except I had a table of 9 people who seemed fairly middle-aged and very wealthy. Margaritas with top shelf tequila, gaudy-looking jewelry etc. etc. Each end of the table seemed to be in their own conversation, not paying attention to the other. Upon hearing about the incoming rain, I go to the woman whom I thought was in charge. She had the fakest tan of them all, and I tell her, let's call her Karen, Mom, I'm really sorry, but because of the weather coming in and our limited seating inside, I'm going to have to move you folks inside so you don't get caught in the rain. This Karen is so entrenched in her conversation she doesn't even register that I, a lowly waiter, was talking to her. So I try again, Mom, I'm sorry for interrupting, but she cuts me off exasperated. What are you saying? I begin again. Mom, I'm sorry because of the weather coming and our inside filling up, we need to move you inside. We have a table ready for you. I can move all your drinks and everything for you. She snaps back with, the only reason we came here was to sit outside. We'll deal with the weather. I realize she doesn't grasp what I'm saying so I try again. Mom, just in case that, and then she goes from 0 to 100 and yells, we'll fucking deal with it. She yelled so loudly that the people on the other half of her table heard. They didn't hear our prior exchange but only heard her outburst and went back to their conversation, assuming this must be normal behavior for her. She wants to deal with it on her own. You got it. So I began to take their order. Filet mignons. A few lobster tails. Expensive shit. I put the order in and I looked back and all the other tables had moved inside, because they all were rational human beings, and my table of 9 entitled jerks were the only ones out there. I heard the leathery-looking Karen say to the rest of the table, wow, we have the entire patio to ourselves, what luxury. After a while I looked inside and saw that the table I had held for them was taken by another party that had just walked in, the last available table. And just as the last butt hit the seat, I felt the best feeling I possibly could have felt at that moment. A glorious raindrop tapped on the top of my head. Oh sweet glory. Within seconds it went from beautiful blue skies to torrential downpour. Everyone at the table grabbed their drinks, a little watered down at this point, and ran inside. After they shook themselves dry, they looked around and realized there was nowhere for them to sit. Most of them looked dumbfounded, like a lost child in a supermarket. Karen makes a beeline to me and screams, we need a table. I reply, I'm sorry Mom, we're fully seated and on a wait for our indoor seating. Maybe one table on the waiting list, but a list is a list. Well, what are we supposed to do now? She hawked back at me, which led to me so eloquently saying, Mom, as you said you would, you fucking deal with it. I air quoted the fucking dealing it, to really emphasize that that was her response, and as I said that everyone else at the table realized that was our interaction earlier and Karen had dug their graves. I felt bad for most of them because if they had all known the circumstances they probably would have convinced Karen to move in. But after she raised her voice and cursed at me, all bets were off. And as serendipity would have it, at that moment their food came out and we handed it to them. There they were. 9 people in damp clothes holding a Cosmo in one hand and filet mignon in another with nowhere to sit to eat. The rest of her party convinced her just to get some boxes for their food and pay their check and leave. As I hand Karen the check, she smugly says, "Well, this will be reflected in your tip," to which I replied, "Ma'am, we implement a 20% tip on parties of 8 or more. It's our policy, and it's clearly stated in our menu." She paid and then they left with their boxed up food, leaving behind their half-full drinks. Best $60 I ever made. Edit. I definitely got the numbers wrong with how much they tipped and what not. It was a while ago. All I remember was the satisfaction. "Ma'am, we implement a 20% tip on parties of 8 or more. It's our policy, and it's clearly stated in our menu. Way to just stick the landing." That was so satisfying. What a great read. Glorious, glorious, glorious. When the chips were down, you raised the stakes. I laughed out loud when you found the queen bee by a tan lineup. Don't fuck with the people that handle your food. It's a simple rule, and yet people seem determined to break it in every way possible. So in my younger days, after a long day of drinking, a few friends and I went to a barbecue place to eat and sober up. It was within walking distance from where I was, so it was perfect. After ordering, the waitress says it's gonna rain and if we would like to come inside. It was way too hot in there and was giving me the beer sweats, so I said I would deal with the rain. It was summer after all, so was hot outside too. After I got my food, the downpour started and I just sat out there eating my pulled pork sandwich without a care in the world. Wait staff tried to get us inside, but like a reluctant group of huskies we stayed outside. After we were done, went inside, paid and gave a good tip since our waitress came out in the rain to check on us. Well, this will be reflected in your tip. And rightly so. How dare you not stop the rain from falling on Karen's head? It's all your fault. Seriously, people. You need to figure out who can influence what. I hope you made more than $60. $300 divided by 9 people is $33 per person, which ordered filet mignon, lobster and top shelf drinks. Please tell me where I can get this kind of food for that kind of money. Yeah, I'm probably the only one doing the math here. That was a satisfying read. Well played. And I wonder, still I wonder, who'll stop the rain? Raindrops start falling on their heads. Of course that means that Karen's face will soon turn red. Nothing's good enough, no. Raindrops keep falling on their heads, they keep falling. I can't believe you air quoted, "We'll fucking deal with it." Or I should rephrase, I do believe it, but it's awesome. We have the entire patio to ourselves, what luxury. I can't quite explain why, but this right here gets under my skin. Significant other much. Spoken like a true entitled piece of shit. Nice work, op. You did everyone a favor that day. The numbers don't really mean much at this point, it's the satisfaction that counts. 9 people drinking top shelf and ordering filet mignon and lobster tails, and their tab was $300. They got off easy. Leaving with wet clothing as well. I can bet none of it was going to survive that night without being ruined as well. One of the best, purest MCs I've read. Congrats. I'm glad that this worked out for you. Did she make the threat, "I won't ever come back here again"? 'Cause I'm sure you would be thinking, "Don't threaten me with a good time, hee. As someone who works in the restaurant industry and has to deal with these types of people daily, take my silver. When he wanted to move her party inside, it would have been so easy for her to say, "We're not sure the rain is going to come before we're finished. Can you hold that inside table and let us stay out here until it rains? We'll deal with it and bring our food in if it happens." And yes, this will be reflected, positively, in your tip. 9 people eating like that for only $300. Top shelf tequila, lobster tail and all. Must have been quite a few years ago. Thank you for sharing that hilarious story. My sides hurt from laughing so much. You can't put a price on satisfaction. 1 or 100. That satisfaction is worth more and lasts so much longer than the money. How is that only $60? You're telling me 9 people's drinks with top shelf liquor and 9 entrees of filet mignon and lobster was only $300. Fucking nice. The minute she said, "We'll fucking deal with it," she and her entire group should have been asked to leave. But this was a great malicious compliance. "Ma'am, we implement a 20% tip on parties of 8 or more. It's our policy, and it's clearly stated in our menu." American tipping culture is so fucking dumb. I find it funny that people think they're wealthy, but a house at the Jersey Shore. This had me laughing so damn loud. I would have paid money to witness this debacle firsthand. Way to go, op. Stand your ground and give them exactly what they asked for. Hands clapping. I hate entitled people. Ah, Tales from your server would love this. That 20% at the end. Chef kiss. Why didn't you call for the table's attention instead of only one person attention? Be serious, there are no affluent parts of the Jersey Shore. Bunch of greaseballs with bad spray tans and alleyway plastic surgeries. That was significant other satisfying to read. I love that you weren't afraid to repeat her words back to her, with air quotes and everything. Keep up the good work, op. I would say the only thing I would do differently is address the whole table, not just one person. I mean, other than that, this is just perfect. I always detest people like this. Just that whole attitude, fuck them. As someone who's been serving for 15 years, this story makes me smile so much. I would love to be a fly on the wall to hear them all tell her she's a rude count and needs to stop being one. Oh man, I think I'm hard. That uplifted my soul. Thank you. Well, this will be reflected in your tip. What? Her shitty behavior, or her inability to grasp the consequences of her actions. The world is truly better without some people in it, and I hope she sees my comment and realizes that I'm convinced she's one of them. 9 people in damp clothes holding a Cosmo in one hand. Our Cosmo, huh? Local police love to nab drunk drivers. This was glorious to hear. I worked at a fancy outdoor restaurant, Vineyard in the middle of nowhere of the Midwest. Thank goodness nearly every person I served was kind because I could never have imagined of the situation working out as perfectly as it did for you. This sounded like an absolute dream, and on behalf of all restaurant staff across the globe, you're doing God's work and we thank you. God, nothing would ever feel so good to say as that last sentence. Good for you. Fair share of entitled people who were under the impression that if you throw enough money around you can do whatever you want and treat people however you want. And when your income depends on their tips, you kind of just have to deal with it. Sadly, this basically means they were kind of right with their impression to some degree. As much as I hate it. I read this and thought of McClune's, but not sure if that's fancy enough. Great MC. I'm glad you fed her the words she so rudely screamed at you. When I read that we implement a 20% tip bit, I was thinking it was code for bad attitude fee until I read on. As a European, American tipping culture just doesn't make any sense. If you do a good enough job, your employer should reflect that on your wages. Why would a customer be forced to compliment an employee's wage? It sounds like a socially accepted form of scamming. Thought you should know your story was sort of stolen. She does mention you but only once. Do cheers. Great story by the way. Loved it and love that part, a Cosmo in one hand and filet mignon in another. Beautiful malicious compliance. Would have relished responding to her bitching about the tip with another, as I recall you reminding me more than once. You, fucking deal with it.